Chapter 10. Children adorned with dazzling crowns, sparkling jewelry, and scintillating costumes performed the pastimes of Krishna on stage. Trained in the minute details of drama, they sang, danced, and acted for an audience of over 100 enchanted locals who sat in a garden. Such theater was performed simultaneously all around Vrindavan, and Asim and I would sometimes attend. On this particular day, Krishna and his cowherd friends pretended to be tax collectors and blocked the path of Radha and her cowherd girls, who carried clay pots of butter on their heads. Asim translated the local Hindi for me. The sweet little boy playing Krishna said to Radha, "Before you can pass, you must pay taxes for the beauty, charm, and sweet love that you possess. The tax will be the pots of butter on your heads." The beautiful child playing Radha's friend Lalita replied, "Why should we pay taxes to you? My Radha is the queen of Vrindavan. You should pay taxes for her, for all the grass your cows eat every day." Through playful dialogue filled with humor, joy, and spiritual emotion, the players captivated our hearts. Their classic stories enhanced by song and dance. In every encounter, Sri Radha's love won over playful Krishna. I had learned in the course of my travels how the essence of yoga meant simply to be absorbed in the Supreme. It struck me how many ways there were to be absorbed. Dawn cast its first light on a spacious courtyard behind a medieval sandstone temple. A brick wall 10 feet high, covered with leafy, flowering vines that hosted droning bees, bordered the yard. Birds, hidden in tree branches, began their chorus to welcome the rising sun. The enclosure was a sanctuary where devotees prayed quietly. Previously, Krishnadas Babaji had explained to me that in the center of the courtyard was the samadhi or tomb of a renowned saint named Rupa Goswami. He and his elder brother Sanatan had at one time ruled Bengal under the king as prime ministers. These young aristocrats were handsome, scholarly, and owned palaces of fabulous wealth. Although charitable in every way and loved by all, they longed to give society the greatest gifts, the love of God. With this conviction, they gave away all they had in charity and moved to Vrindavan, where they slept under forest trees. Under the inspiration of Lord Chaitanya, the brothers composed vast literatures to illuminate the world with the inner secrets of spiritual love, while they personally exemplified those teachings. For almost 5 centuries, they had inspired countless followers. I had become so attracted by Rupa and Sanatan's devotion, I couldn't hear enough about them. I knelt down before Rupa Goswami's tomb and prayed silently. Above the earth where the saint's body was enshrined was a small square room made of sandstone that had a domed roof and was crowned with a spire. In my readings from religious books of various faiths, I had learned of how a saint's presence is especially powerful at his tomb. But nothing could have prepared me for what was about to unfold on that day. I suddenly experienced an invisible energy, mystical yet real, that poured out from the samadhi. It was as if a spirit that possessed limitless grace was embracing me and filling me with love. I felt weightless, beyond the body and mind. My limbs shivered and skin tingled as waves of gratitude thrilled my heart. Looking down at the dusty ground, I felt so small and unworthy of such an intimate experience. Was this another glimpse into the divine love that I yearned for, spurring me on to crave for more? I felt it was. My Lord was nudging me onto yet another step forward toward my destiny. I suddenly knew with certainty that bhakti was the path that I would give my life to, and that Krishna's name would in time reveal his love to me. All the reservations that had prevented me from committing my whole heart to this path were now gone. But I understood that I would have to follow sincerely, under the shelter of an authentic teacher or guru, to whom I believed Krishna would bring me. Bhakti, the path of devotion. My path had been revealed. Finally, I accepted. I had now been in India for 1 year. I continued to learn the lesson that along with everything wonderful came an equal number of challenges. Months before, I had dutifully trudged to the immigration office in nearby Mathura to apply for a visa extension. The agent sent my application on to New Delhi, assuring me that in the meantime, the receipt of my application would serve as my legal visa until the official reply. The autumn was giving way to winter, and there was still no reply. At least, that's what I thought. Unbeknownst to me, a letter had been delivered to an ashram where the recipient lost it and never informed me. The letter, it turns out, had stated that I must report immediately to the office in Mathura. Unaware of any of this, I failed to report. Time passed. As a result, the immigration agent in charge of my case was outraged, feeling that I had defied his authority. I, in the meantime, went about my life unaware that anything was wrong. One day, a temple priest hurried out to the street where I stood. His face was solemn. "A government agent is hunting you down," he said. "He believes you defied him." "What are you talking about?" I blurted, bewildered. What could I have done to warrant such attention? "In the morning, he came here searching for you. He screamed like a mad dog, threatening that when he found you, he would severely punish you." The priest's face twisted in disgust as he lowered his voice. "I know this man. He is cruel and corrupt. We fear him more than the local criminals, for he has the power to do anything." "What should I do?" I inquired, my heart pounding. "Be careful." Everywhere I went, people told me that the agent had been there searching for me. Dozens of Brijabasis and sadhus prayed for my protection. In those days, along with Shripad Baba and Asim, I would sometimes visit the second home of an affluent woman from Delhi named Yogamaya. She had a 2-room apartment where nightly she hosted devotees to perform kirtan while she cooked for everyone. One such night I met a man from New Delhi called Engineer. A mechanical engineer by profession, he was a tall, middle-aged man with neatly combed black hair and a trimmed mustache. And like everyone else at Yogamaya's place, he was a gentle soul and a sincere devotee of Krishna. After hearing my case, he assured everyone that through his connections, he would try to normalize my immigration status in New Delhi. Everyone at the house insisted that the two of us leave at once. Under the cover of night, engineer and I crept along the small lanes of Vrindavan to reach the bus station. As we stood in line to purchase our tickets, a voice resounded like a crash of thunder. "Arrest him!" A hush fell over the bus station. Before I could understand what was happening, a hand seized my neck and slammed me against a brick wall. I was face to face with the government agent. "You defied me," he blasted. "Now you are mine." His eyes flashed with rage. Engineer tugged at his sleeve, trying to explain the miscommunication, but the agent was not a man to listen to reason. He was a man of force. He struck Engineer across the face again and again, then pinned him against the wall next to me. "You dare to challenge my authority?" he screamed. "If you speak another word, you too will be beaten and arrested." Women screamed, men gasped, and children cried. 2 police constables flanked him, holding clubs to prevent anyone from interfering with him. As Engineer cowered against the wall, the agent gripped my neck and dragged me away. The local people looked on in horror, crying, "He's a sadhu! Do not hurt him! Do not hurt this boy!" The agent yanked me along and shoved me into the bus, bound for Mathura. At the door of the bus, he turned to the 2 constables. "Away with you! I don't need your help. This culprit is all mine now." He ran me down into the front seat and sat beside me. I got a good look at him now. He was built like a warrior, with disheveled hair and short beard. Shaking my shoulders, he screamed into my face, "I'll whip you, starve you, and make you wish you were never born." Spittle shot from his lips. Wiping his spit from my face, I thought, I'm in the hands of a sadist. This man is mad. What can I do? I closed my eyes and softly chanted the mantra. The overcrowded bus jerked forward. We drove along for a while when suddenly chaos erupted in the rear of a bus. A fight had broken out between 2 farmers. My captor seized this opportunity to display his prowess. He leapt up from his seat. He ordered the bus driver to watch over me, as if I could go anywhere with the bus speeding down the highway. Roaring, the agent rushed to the back of the bus, knocking everyone aside. At the rear, he dove into the brawl and mercilessly thrashed the 2 farmers. Meanwhile, I thought to myself, the next few seconds may be my only chance to escape. Inwardly, I cried out for direction. An idea popped into my mind. I sprang from my seat and rushed to the driver, crying out, "Pani, Pani, Pani," meaning I had to pass urine. With a wave of his hand, he ordered me back to my seat. But to his dismay, I didn't leave. Instead, I jumped up and down, holding myself like a little boy, screaming out with the pangs of a burning, bursting bladder. "Pani, Pani!" Again, he ordered me to sit. At that moment, I took note that the driver was barefoot. This was my only possibility to escape, and it was passing. What I did next should be understood as a radical measure in a time of great emergency. I squatted down beside the driver's seat and passed urine onto the floorboard of the bus, carefully aiming it so that the stream would ricochet onto his bare feet. Feeling my warm urine sprinkling upon his feet, his eyes flung wide in shock and his mouth gaped open. Utterly bewildered, he slammed on the brakes, cranked open the door, and screamed, "Do it outside!" I ran like the wind. To my surprise, the bus drove off. I guess that bus driver wanted to be rid of me forever. In a field, I watched from behind a bush. 50 yards down the road, the bus came to a screeching halt and backed up. I could just imagine my captor smacking the driver for setting me free. The agent burst out into the darkness of night and searched frantically up and down the road with a flashlight in hand. But all he found was an isolated highway. Frustrated, he stomped back onto the bus and returned to Mathura. Meanwhile, I slinked through fields, forests, and back alleys to reach Yogamaya's house. Engineer was there. He had already narrated my capture to the devotees. They, in turn, had been praying and chanting all night for my protection. They did not know what else to do. When I entered the doorway, everyone leaped up to greet me. "How did you escape?" they asked in unison. "By Krishna's mercy." I was ashamed to describe my unconventional methods. Later, other passengers who were on the bus related to me the events that followed my escape. The agent had blazed in rage. An old widow ridiculed him. "You boast to be such a big, tough man. Ha, ha, ha! But now you have been defeated by that skinny little sadhu?" Everyone in the bus roared with laughter. Utterly humiliated, he publicly declared to avenge the wrong I did to him. From that night on, he dedicated his time to hunting down his prey, me. The Brijabasis gave him wrong leads. Meanwhile, I learned every back alleyway in Vrindavan, daring not to step on the main road. I lived like a fugitive with an obsessed agent of the law hot on my trail. One morning at 4:30, as I prayed in the Radharaman temple, I presented my case before Krishna. If I try to leave India with an invalid visa, I will never be allowed to return. If I stay, it is only a matter of time before I'm apprehended and then deported from Vrindavan forever. Please do to me whatever you wish. In the darkness of the early morning, I left the temple and paced along a narrow lane. Suddenly, an eerie howl rang out in the dark. I hesitated in my step. Horror struck, and the fangs of a beast plunged into my right leg. Gripped by the formidable jaws, I was dragged to the ground. Then it was over. I looked back and saw only darkness. The creature had disappeared into the night just as quickly as it had appeared. My leg was burning with pain. I limped forward in the shadows, lost my balance, and stumbled into a canal where I lay in thick black sewage. I hauled my body up out of that mess and hobbled on to the Radha Vallabha temple, where I was warmly greeted by the chief priest and his son, Radheshlal Goswami. They arranged for me to bathe. In their affectionate company, the pain of my leg began to seem irrelevant. Later that morning, as I sat with Ghanasham and two other sadhus in his temple, Ghanasham noticed my leg bleeding. Startled, that lovable old man raised his eyebrows and asked in a high pitch, "Krishnadas, what happened to you?" I explained. They shook their heads in grief. An elderly sadhu gasped, "Any mad dog that bites like that has rabies. You must immediately take treatment." Dejected, I replied, "Better that I die in Vrindavan than get sent away." Their bodies swayed restlessly, and they looked to me like beggars pleading for food. They said, "Rabies makes you raving mad. We insist you must take proper treatment." The free medical stall was a wooden shack right on a main road. With the agent hunting for me, it was especially dangerous for me to be there. But I took my chances anyhow. Dozens of poverty-stricken people stood in line. Flies swarmed, buzzing and biting. The doctor had a terribly limited supply of medicine. I carefully observed how he gave a diseased person an injection, swished the needle in a cup of alcohol, and then used it for the next person, and the next person, and the next. Then came my turn. The doctor analyzed my wound and frowned in dismay. He exclaimed, "You must have rabies. Can you identify the animal that bit you?" "Doctor, it disappeared in the night," I answered. "I don't know what it was." He made me lie on my back on a bare wooden table. Scrambling through a metal box, he lifted out a huge needle. It was tarnished and bent. Before my eyes, he sharpened it with a file. Slowly, he drew the serum into the syringe. He said, "Forgive me, but I must inject you in the stomach. This will be very painful." The doctor pushed the dull needle into my stomach, but it would not penetrate. He tried again and again, struggling to dig it deeper as I lay there squirming. Visibly frustrated as dozens of impatient, sick people waited in line, he cried out, "If I don't get this serum in you, you will die. In an emergency, sometimes we must abandon conventional techniques." In a passion, he thrust that needle down into my stomach with great force, and my whole body bounced from the table. It was excruciating. Finally, the needle penetrated. I felt like it was ripping me in two. The doctor slowly pushed the serum through the muscles and into my bloodstream. My stomach swelled in agony. I was desperate to get out of that place and never come back. As I staggered away, he announced, "You must return for the next 13 days to receive these injections." I knew it was not possible for me to survive another such ordeal. "It's not possible for me to return," I said. "If you don't, you will go mad with uncontrollable convulsions and die." I explained my complex situation. If I come on this main road every day, I will surely be imprisoned. As we spoke, he grew affectionate and assured me, "I am a government doctor. I will write a letter with government stamp. You take it to Delhi, and they must give you a valid visa." The next day, my stomach was bruised with purple and green swelling. There would be no reprieve, however. The same painful ordeal had to be repeated for another 13 days, no matter what. The poor doctor was earnestly trying to do the best he could with what he had. He promised to have a better needle when I returned. As he'd instructed, I boarded a third-class train to New Delhi. When I reached the Home Minister's office, I was given over to a high-ranking official, as mine was a special case. The official gravely read the doctor's note, which stated that I had rabies and would die without proper treatment. The doctor went on to request urgently that I be granted a valid visa so that he might continue my treatment. Done reading, the immigration official looked sternly into my eyes. Then he spoke. "I will not be able to sleep at night if I know that I am the cause of your death." He called for my files to be brought in, and with great care regularized my immigration status. Now you are completely legal. There is no longer any problem. With these words, he stamped my passport with a fresh visa. I returned to Vrindavan, feeling that I had passed through another necessary purification to prepare me for my destiny. I was not to be bothered by the government agent again, as he was now under investigation and soon to be fired for abuse of power. I was free to stay in this place I loved and had an overpowering sensation that something wonderful would soon unfold for me here. One chilly night during the last days of November, I sat alone under a kadamba tree on the bank of the river, where I carefully listened to the quiet, swishing song of Yamuna. The moonlight glimmered on the surface of the water, while birds of the night filled the air with soothing sounds. My mind became a projector, and the river a cinema screen on which I observed the events of my life. I witnessed the joys and sorrows of my childhood and the senseless escapades of my teens. I saw Gary and myself charged with the energy of youth, leaving our homeland to seek meaning. We had roamed Europe, seeing the sights, making friends, and soaking in every possible experience. The one constant through it all had been a longing for God, which became an obsession. Where did this longing come from? I did not know. Searching, I had studied religions and philosophies, and from childhood had prayed in synagogues and later in monasteries, cathedrals, mosques, and temples. Gazing into the current, my mind flowed back to that fateful sunset on the island of Crete, where I resolved to embark upon my pilgrimage to India. Life-changing lessons had greeted me as I crossed the Middle East. While studying the Holy Quran, danger and disease perpetually hovered over my head. As I looked deeper into the river, my mind's eye beheld the panoramic beauty of the Himalayas. I envisioned the great rishis, mystics, ascetics, yogis, and lamas from whom I had so eagerly learned. They had all been so kind to me, and in my heart I thanked each of them. Then I witnessed the miraculous reunion with Gary in that rice paddy in Nepal. I wondered where he was now and why we'd been separated again. On that riverbank, I heard again all the unceasing prayers that I had offered on my arduous pilgrimage, praying that my spiritual path be revealed. I recalled how Lord Rama had appeared in Ram Sevak Swami's dream and said to him, "This young boy is a devotee of Krishna, and Vrindavan will be his place of worship." At that time, I had disregarded those words, but now, having resided in Vrindavan for about 5 months, I had a sense of sincere surrender and had finally accepted devotion to Krishna as my spiritual path. Still, emptiness lingered within. I knew that I must accept a guru to whom I could fully dedicate myself. This necessity was emphasized both by tradition and by the words of Scripture. To harmonize one's life in the service of a guru's teaching was the path that enlightened souls had followed since time immemorial. Gazing into Yamuna's dark current, I prayed for direction. It was now late at night. With these thoughts in my mind, I lay down to sleep on the riverbank, only to be haunted by a strange dream. I found myself in a comfortable house in America, surrounded by people chattering on about frivolous topics while a television droned in the background. I awoke with a start. Why did I leave Vrindavan? I shouted, confused. I rolled about on the riverbank, sobbing into the darkness. Why did I leave Vrindavan? Why did I leave Vrindavan? Gradually, I recognized the Yamuna flowing by and the nearby Kadamba tree. I am in Vrindavan, I exulted. I am still in Vrindavan, I said aloud. I pressed myself to the cold earth beneath me, feeling that I never wanted to leave. After regaining my composure, I reflected. This cold, dusty riverbank in Vrindavan is many times more precious to me than a palatial mansion in the country of my birth. Later in the morning, as I walked along a narrow lane, I stepped around a cow stretched out lazily in my path. When I looked up, I saw a Western monk dressed in saffron robes eagerly approaching and waving his arms as he called out, "Richard, Richard!" It seemed I knew this person. As he drew nearer, I saw that he was a devotee I had met 9 months earlier at the Hare Krishna festival in Bombay. I had never seen one of these Western-born disciples of Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan. I was delighted. "Srila Prabhupada is coming tomorrow," he exclaimed. The sun was about to set. Chattering birds frolicked in the sky. A cow rose lazily from its slumber and, clacking her hooves on the footpath, strode away with a gentle moo. A strange feeling of excitement rushed through me as he continued. "Did you know that Srila Prabhupada is a resident of Vrindavan? He's returning after spreading the culture of devotion all over the world." Patting my back, he smiled. "Prabhupada will be so happy to see you here. We were all wondering where you could be. Please, come."